Have you ever heard the saying, justice is blind? Well, sometimes justice isn't just blind. It's bound, gagged, and shoved in the back of a moving car with no idea how it got there. Chambers of the Occult may contain content that might not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Not how I expected this to start. Oh my.
Welcome back, everyone.
That got me so off guard.
Good.
Oh my god. Holy shit, you just like rolled through that too.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now that I got your attention.
Hi, welcome back to Chambers of the Occult. I am currently shocked, otherwise known as Kai.
I am Jay.
Hello.
Enjoying the shock.
Yeah, no, that was good. That was good.
And welcome back to Chambers of the Occult.
Hey everybody, how you doing? How's it going?
How ya doing? Episode 29.
Wow, we're almost like 30 episodes
I
in.
remember when we thought it was crazy that we were at 12.
Yeah.
And now we're like
Yeah.
at 29.
Well, because I think episode 12 is when we really were like invested into it. Like around that, it was like, well,
Yeah.
like we've got a bunch of episodes out now. Like we're doing this thing, right?
Yeah. We got to like look back and be like, oh, like we've been committed to this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the first like 3 or 4 episodes were like, okay, it was fun. But then we hit like 10 episodes and we were like, whoa, we've got a lot of these out.
Yeah. And now we got even more of them out.
We've got like triple that. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
So if you stuck around, welcome. If you're new, welcome. If you're a
Welcome.
returning listener, welcome back.
Yeah.
And
Thanks
if
for
you're being
here.
forced to listen by a friend during a long car ride,
Oh,
thank them
yeah.
later. Or, thank them later.
I mean, there's a lot of things you could do. If you really were like a true fan after listening to this, what you could do is you could like grab the steering wheel and just whip it around and then give us a new true crime case to investigate. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I would just say that send us like an email before you do that and be like, keep an eye out for the local news on this highway and then grab the steering wheel. And
just call the police before you do it so that they get there
yeah.
like immediately. And then, where are we going with this?
Don't commit crimes.
Please don't.
I think we're
Definitely
doing the
don't.
complete opposite. Yeah, don't commit crimes.
I mean, if any of you out there who are listening have committed a crime before, let us know. We want to hear about it.
And we'll keep it anonymous.
I swear.
Unless, we get like a warrant from like the FBI or something.
We can totally get that. Yeah.
No, I was like, we'll keep
yeah.
the story of your crime anonymous unless we're like contacted by like a local authority.
We'll bring them on the show, like in like a documentary, and we'll have their like face dark and like blurred, and their voice like modulated so it sounds like this, like or something like I don't know. That'd be
We should
fun.
have like a dramatic reenactment as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We can produce our own little crime documentary. I was like, what's the word? Yeah.
Yeah, that worked.
But anyway, I assume all the listeners are here for a story, and so are you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a story for y'all.
Let's hear it.
And
Sorry if you just heard me smacking a bunch. I'm drinking a Monster.
ASMR.
All right, go ahead, Jim.
You're good.
You got me reeled in.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So once again, we've all heard the saying justice is blind. It's a little different for this case. Or is it? Um, for this case, I wanted to take us out of the country. I was not very successful
Okay.
because, full disclosure, for some reason, I started with paranormal. And after like one page, I was like, wait, this doesn't feel right. And I was like, I'm not doing paranormal this time. Switched to true crime.
Valid.
And then I started researching a story. And I was like,
Well, well, don't worry because I will be taking us away from from
oh,
home. So,
okay,
yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
because my original true crime was going to be out of the country. And then for
Gotcha.
some reason, something happened that I ended up being deviated into another true crime. But for this case, we're just heading to South California,
Okay.
to Los Angeles, California,
All
LA.
right. Where nothing good ever happened.
Um, I don't know. Disney's down there, isn't it?
Maybe one good thing happened.
Okay. Anyway, the year was 1948, and it was a city that was buzzing with post-war optimism.
Hmm.
Neon lights were flickering against the pavement. Jazz was spilling out of the bars. And of course, young lovers sneak off to like Lover's Lane for a little privacy.
Oh, of course.
But of course, beneath this glamour and romance, a shadow lurked, because otherwise I wouldn't be sharing this story. A cunning individual who turned the city's own symbol of authority into tools for terror.
What?
Yeah.
That's
So,
ominous.
Kai, what
Yeah.
do you think would be the most unexpected item to find in a criminal's toolkit?
In a criminal's toolkit,
Yeah.
a toothbrush.
Okay, fair. And if you were a criminal mastermind, what unconventional methods would you use to stop unsuspecting victims?
To stop them, like to
Yeah.
lure them in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would. I don't know. I'd probably be like, help! Like my daughter needs help, and I'd have like a little like bundle
Child.
in my
Okay.
arms that like looks like a kid, but it's really not. And then once they like come over, I'd like strangle
Okay.
them or something. I don't
So the typical like TV or like documentary thing that yeah,
know.
someone does. Okay, that I mean it's worked in the past for, clear reasons that people have like a weakness to helping like innocent people or
Hmm.
people in need. But anyway, our story, you'll find out why I'm asking these questions.
Yeah.
Our story begins on the night of January 3rd, 1948. A quiet evening in Pasadena in a local man furnishing store. The name of the store was Carl Holcher's, and the clerk, uh, Mr. McCullen, was tidying up. He was preparing to close for the night when he heard the chime of the doorbell ring. You know, two men
Yeah.
walked in, and at first glance they appeared to be typical late-hour shoppers, but the atmosphere quickly shifted. One of the men reached into his coat, and he produced a 49 caliber semi-automatic pistol.
Oh shit.
The barrel
All
was
right.
leveled directly at Mr. McCulling, whose heart started to race with adrenaline, and he heard them say, "Empty the register." The
Classic.
gunman demanded. His voice was just steady and devoid of any emotion. Mr. McCullen, with his hands trembling, he complied. He gathered the day's earnings and he handed them over $800 in cash and checks. The second man moved swiftly, collecting additional valuables. Their movements were practiced and efficient, and within moments, the men had fled into the night, leaving Mr. McCullen shaken but unharmed.
Wow. I wonder how scary that must be, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have never been in that situation. I hope I'm never in that
I hope
situation.
not. Yeah.
And I can only imagine the fear that people feel during those moments.
I think one of my exes, they they told me how one time like when they were in high school, they went to Subway after school and they were just getting like a Subway sandwich and then somebody like came in and robbed the Subway with a gun while they were in the subway, while my
Yeah.
ex was in the subway. And I was like, what the
Wow.
fuck? And like they talk so casually of it. I was like, what the hell? You were just part of like an armed robbery. And like,
Yeah.
what? And they were
Yeah.
like, yeah, you know, I didn't really think about it, but I was like really scared. And I feel like there's some trauma because of it. I was like, yeah, dude, what?
Yeah.
Anyway,
You were
side
in
note.
in close quarters in a room with someone holding a gun, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this robbery was the first of a series of crimes that would soon grip the greater Los Angeles area in fear. Um, so then, on January 13th, just 10 days after the first robbery, parked along a dimly lit street sat a pristine 1946 Ford Coupe. The vehicle was a symbol of
Nice.
post-war prosperity. Wow, English. Um, the thief approached, tools in hands, and within moments, the car's door popped open, and the engine roared to life as the thief sped away with the stolen Ford, disappearing into the streets of Pasadena.
Wow. So they just got away with it.
Yep. Now, on January 18th, 1948, as dust settled over California coastlines near the Malibu beach,
Yep.
there was a couple that was seeking a peaceful evening by the sea, and they noticed a set of red flashing lights in their rear view mirror. Believing it was a police officer,
But
they pulled
police.
over. Approaching their vehicle was a man driving a 1947 Ford Coupe.
Oh shit.
That's right, that same 1947 coupe that got stolen just a few days before.
Mm-hmm.
The car was equipped with a police siren, and he approached the car with a 49 caliber pistol. He demanded their valuables, instilling fear and confusion. And after taking their possessions, he vanished into the night, leaving the couple unharmed, but of course, shaken. Later that same day, near the Rose Bowl, another couple experienced a very similar incident. They too were signaled to stop by a red light, and they were rubbed at gunpoint. The man also fit the same
Wow.
description. So
Mm-hmm.
the audacity and the precision of the crimes just left both victims, of course, alarmed and in fear.
Yeah, of course. They were robbed and probably thought they were gonna die, and
Yeah.
are now thinking, why didn't I get killed? Why didn't he kill me?
Now, I have a newspaper clipping
Oh, cool.
that talks about these victims, and it's from The Independent, Pasadena, California, Wednesday, 21st, 1948. And this is when they gave this assailant, this robber, a nickname. Care to
Oh,
guess
they
what
gave
the
him a
nickname
nickname.
was?
The cop robber.
You're not far off. You're not
The
you're
robber
like
cop.
under the same umbrella. They called him the Red Light Bandit.
Oh, that's way cooler. The Red
Wow.
Light Bandit is such a cool name.
Yeah. And I was like, why do like bad people always get like such cool like names?
No, seriously.
But it starts by the Red Light Bandit struck again early yesterday, robbing a third couple on Hollywood's famed Lover's Lane. His latest foray came only 2 hours after he pounced on couple number 2 near the Sacred Heart Academy and it continues by saying, Gerald Stone and Esther Panskull of Los Angeles were accosted by the pseudo-cop as they were parked on Mulhound Drive and robbed of $2.08. Yes. Desperate times. Earlier, the bandit
$2.08 is
obtained.
crazy.
I know. Earlier, the bandit obtained $51 from Jorgen Leah and Regina Johnson of Los Angeles at Panama Point in the hills south of Flint Ridge. Couple number 1 were held up last Sunday, while parked along the streets of Rose Bowl. The bandit, about 35, first flashes a red spotlight on his victims and asks for identification cards. The three couples said that he was driving a tan-color sedan, possibly a 1942 Ford or Mercury, with a red spotlight on the left side. They said the radio in his car was turned to police calls. Monroe Sheriff deputies said the bandit took Miss Johnson into his car and tried to force his intentions on her. She managed to get out of the car after a short struggle, and the bandit drove off. Neither of the other women were molested, according to the police.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So that was from January 21st. And then January 19th, it's a little bit more details on that couple because, once again, they were looking for a quiet refuge. They parked the car on the hill, and then their intimate moment was abruptly shattered when those red lights came on. It signaled them to stop, and believing there was a police officer, they complied,
Like, oh shit.
only to be confronted with a .49 caliber pistol.
Kind of reminds me of the Zodiac killer. You know, like how in San Francisco, how like some of his first victims were, you know, that couple that was,
Yeah.
you know, the young couple
A
that
lot
was
of them.
in their car. You know, a lot of them, yeah, and he'd just roll up and anyway,
Nope. We'll have to
Continue,
cover that
sorry
at
to-
some point.
for sure, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so he pulled them over, he took their valuables, and then he turned his attention to the female victim, Regina Johnson. And under the threat of his weapon, he forced her to perform oral sex.
Oh my god, bro.
Yeah.
Look at
So
this dude.
this assault just marked the escalation of the crimes. He was no
Yeah.
longer just taking their valuables. He was doing as much as he could to like
He was, yeah,
Yeah.
assaulting them, asserting his power.
he was no longer content with just robbery.
Yeah, it's escalating,
Yep.
and that's never a good sign.
And then on the night of January 22nd, a young couple was returning home from church. As they navigated the secluded stretches of the drive, red lights flashed in their rearview mirror.
Oh,
Once again,
shit.
they believed it was law enforcement because why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? Why wouldn't
Yep.
you? I would.
Yep.
They pulled over without hesitation, and the man approached them with the .49 caliber pistol. He robbed a couple of their possessions, and this is when he forcibly removed 17-year-old Mary Louise from the vehicle. He dragged her to his own car, and that's when her companion, in a desperate attempt to seek help, he fled.
Okay, good.
But the
good
Red Light
for-
Bandit pursued the man.
Oh shit! There was a foot pursuit.
Yep.
Being chased.
So he failed to force the young man off the road. So the attacker returned his focus to Mary Louise.
Okay.
She was in the back of his car, bound, gagged, and he drove
Fuck.
for around an hour. She was in the back of the car for about an hour. He eventually stopped.
With just her tied up, like begging, screaming for her
Yeah,
life.
of course, in tears.
Yeah.
And he reached a secluded area where he forced her to engage in oral and anal sex.
Oh god.
And the way that he went about it was that he threatened to kill her boyfriend if she resisted.
Who is this guy? What the fuck?
Yeah. So this brutal assault just marked a chilling escalation of the crimes because he was now literally kidnapping people, driving around for an hour, showing that he was in control. She did escape, and I have a newspaper clipping about that.
Okay.
It says, Red Light Bandit kidnaps, frees girl, escapes police. Police hunted the Red Light Bandit of Hollywood Hills today after he struck for the fourth time, kidnapped a girl, and led officers on a 2-hour chase.
Oh, shit.
In the 2-hour chase in the hills before he finally escaped.
Wow.
The 17-year-old girl was released a block from her home, police reported. She was kidnapped and sat in the car on Mulholland Drive with Frank Jr. Hulbert, 1518 South Van Ness Avenue. The bandit operated the same as he did in 3 similar cases. Sunday, when he robbed occupants of automobiles and Mulholland Drive of the Coast Highway, and Flint Rich making his victims think that he was an officer by turning a red spotlight on their cars. Last night, however, he pointed a gun at Hulbert and forced the girl to get into his car, then roared away. Hulbert ran into the residence and telephoned the police, who think they saw the bandit's car several times but were unable to catch him.
Wow.
So they informed the public, hey, this is happening in the area. Kind of be careful. But at the same time, if you get pulled over, how do you know if that's a cop or not?
It's so hard to tell. Like, you really can't. I mean, you see the red and blues and you're like, oh shit, I'm getting pulled over. I need to stop.
Do you keep driving or do you stop?
I mean, today, what I would do and what I would suggest everybody to do is you slow down, but you keep driving while you try to pull into somewhere that is like lit up and visible, like a gas station or something like that. And also call 911. Reach out to a dispatcher and say, like, hey, I'm being pulled over in this area right now. Do you guys have an officer who is in this area and initiating a traffic stop?
Yeah.
Like, I'm
especially
scared for my
if like
safety.
announcements like this is out there.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, back then, what, 1948? You couldn't really call. You didn't have a phone.
And once again, this was like the first time this was happening, so it was unprecedented. No one knew how to handle the situation.
Yeah.
Now,
So, I don't know.
yeah. So this assault would also be the last attack from the Red Light Bandit.
Really?
Yeah, because
It was the Red Light Bandit's last attack?
Yep, because the following day, in North Hollywood, 2 policemen spotted a car which resembled the description given by Mesa and her boyfriend. Yep. And also, it matched the description given by the witness of the robbery of the clothing store and the ones that the cops gave chase. So the cops started the chase. The car is zigzagged through the side streets, roaring around the corners on 2 wheels. Eventually, 7 other police cars were alerted on the radio, and they took up the high-speed chase.
Yeah.
From Hollywood to Los Angeles.
Oh, shit.
So finally, one of the policemen's cars rammed the quarry into the curb. When that happened, 2 men jumped out of the car and they started to flee on foot.
2 men?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
This got a little more interesting.
So the cops were not having it, and they fired their guns over their heads, and that's when they surrendered.
The 2 runners?
Well, they were running, and the cops fired the guns over their heads.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And the 2 runners just
they were
stopped.
like, nope.
Yep.
We're done. Okay.
So the cops started to search the vehicle, and they turned up a revolver, a toy gun, 2 sets of license plates, and $130 crumpled up in currency.
Wow. They're rich.
They were trying to do something. I don't know what they were trying to do. Not get rich, clearly.
Crime. I don't know. Kill people.
Yeah. Both of the men were identified as Caryl W. Chessman, 26 years old, and David H. Knowles, 32 years old. Now, Mary Louise Mesa, the 17-year-old victim from the previous night, was able to identify him.
Awesome.
There was also Mr. McCullen, the clerk from Carl Holder's men's furnishing store. He was able to identify him as one of the bandits as well.
Okay.
So
That's awesome. So they got the guy essentially.
yep. Everyone else that got assaulted by this man also was able to identify him.
Fuck
They're like,
yeah.
yep, that was the man. Now, this man, Chessman, did not confess. It would be only after 72 hours of interrogation
Whoa.
that he claimed he was beaten and tortured. That's when he confessed to being the Red Light Bandit.
So a confession was beaten out of him.
Yeah, so this is only half of the
not a good
story.
look.
Yeah, because this is when there was a lot of public outrage.
Yeah.
So after the arrest on January 23rd, 1948, Caryl Chessman and David Knowles were faced with a series of charges just related to the recent stirrings of robberies and assaults that had terrorized the area. While Chessman was accused of multiple felonies, including kidnapping, sexual assault, Knowles was simply charged as an accessory to the store robberies.
Oh wow.
So we'll get rid of Knowles. Like, we'll talk about him because there's not a lot about him. He actually opted out for a separate trial, and he waived his right to a jury. The court found him guilty.
I'm guilty.
Yep, on 2 accounts of robbery and 2 accounts of kidnapping for the purpose of robbery.
Yeah.
They sentenced him to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
Good.
However, in 1950, upon an appeal, his conviction was reversed due to insufficient evidence directly linking him to the crimes and the concerns over the potential legal overreach. Yep.
That sucks. That's why you don't beat confessions out of people, because like.
So
they're not
he
gonna
wasn't the
stick.
one that got beat.
Oh, it was the other guy?
Yep, we'll talk about him in a minute.
Okay,
This man,
okay.
Knowles, only spent 2 years in prison before he got released. Following his release, his details about his life are a little bit scare. Public records offer little information, and his whereabouts are a little blurry, but that's all we know of him. We never hear from him again. Now, Caryl Chessman was the one that the public felt outraged for. So let's talk a little bit more about him, because who was this Red Light Bandit? So he was born in 1921, and even as a youth, it sounds like he always had a little bit of a rebellious streak. Right from the start, there were signs of trouble. Petty crimes as youth, even daring to escape from juvenile detention. And wait for it, stealing a truck and driving it over a wall. He drove a truck over a wall.
How do you drive a truck over a wall?
Could not find how, but he literally drove a truck over a wall.
Was there a ramp? Was there a hill? Was there...
Maybe it wasn't a very tall wall.
Okay.
But,
alright.
Yep, it
Good
just
for
shows
him,
that there was a
I guess.
pattern of just like pushing boundaries and like walls, because those are boundaries. Anyway, and what's interesting about his tendency is that he was able to charm authorities. He was very
he's one of them.
charismatic. Yep. You know, he makes promises to reform, but then he ends up back in trouble. It's almost like he's playing like a role. So
Okay.
almost like this gentleman bandit persona. And then in
Pretty cool
1941,
persona, I can't lie.
the Red Light Bandit, it's a cool nickname, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Sucks that it belongs to this man, but you know, yeah. In 1941, he was convicted for a robbery and assault, and this landed him in San Quentin.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
he
not
had
just
a history.
he had a history. So not just as youthful indiscretions anymore. This was serious business to end up in
Yeah.
San
I
Quentin.
mean, San Quentin is.
Oh, yeah. Now, we're going to skip to 1948 when he was interrogated.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is where things get legally complex.
Okay.
The year was 1948, long before Miranda rights were established.
Oh, okay.
So he had no right to remain silent and no right to an attorney. Now, during the interrogation, Chessman confessed to he confessed that it was a lengthy interrogation, but he later claimed that the confession was coerced.
Coerced. Yeah.
Because of course 72
It was-
hours, and if he gets beaten, yep.
Just
So
beaten out of
that's
him.
what raises all the questions. It throws the whole issue of the validity of that evidence into question.
It does.
Like, I can only imagine being interrogated for hours without like a lawyer.
I mean, isn't that like a loophole that like any criminal could use?
Yeah.
Like if they see the right opportunity, like if the officers are like going really hard on them, they could give some like bullshit confession that like maybe the officer will believe, and they'll be like, actually, it was coerced out of me. I was beaten by this officer, so you can't really trust it. Sorry.
Yep. And it's why now like people are interrogated in rooms with cameras.
Yeah. Good.
But yeah, so let's move on to the trial itself,
Yeah.
because it took place on April 29th, 1948. Now, here's where Chessman makes a decision that would basically define the rest of his life. Because what did he do? Like many
Big
criminals
decision.
who feel charismatic, who feel like they can sway people, he chose to represent himself.
Himself.
Yep.
Like any idiot that does.
Yep. He defended himself against those charges. But I think even then and even now, just trying to like navigate the legal defense without proper training, you can't really do.
Anybody who decides to represent themselves in court doesn't realize that their client is an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Now, I'm going to be talking about a law that played
Some shit like
a
that.
ton into this case. So, the Little Lindbergh Law was passed in 1933 after the Lindbergh baby kidnapping. So that's a whole case we can cover later as well.
Yeah.
But this law basically broadened the definition of kidnapping in the state of California. It meant that even moving someone against their will for a short distance could be considered kidnapping.
Wow, really strict.
Yeah, so that's a pretty broad definition, and it's punishable by death.
Well, it was, right? Not anymore.
Yeah,
But
so that's why this whole case is so controversial back in the day, even nowadays. So even though Chessman didn't kill anyone, those assaults forced victims into his car. It could be seen as kidnapping under this law.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's precisely what the prosecution argued. So they convinced the jury that those actions met the criteria for kidnapping with bodily harm, making him eligible for the death penalty. So he was facing serious charges, including kidnapping, robbery, and sexual assault. But instead of hiring a lawyer, like I said, he
Yep,
chose to defend
he
himself,
Defended himself.
which made the trial even more dramatic and widely followed.
Yeah.
So-
Wanna see what shit show is gonna go down.
Exactly. Like, I tune in. I'm like, what's happening? Like, what is this man saying? He doesn't know what he's doing.
Did you ever watch any of the Johnny Depp and whatever her name is trial?
No.
It's so funny. Like it's so.
I
there's
think
so
I've
much
seen
shade
clips
going on.
here and there, and then so many memes.
Yeah. It's
And I
good.
think like my favorite meme, it's like, what do you have? And it was like, I've got a jar of dirt. And I was just like, yeah. But I didn't follow it closely. I just
Yeah.
like saw clips here and there.
It was so stupid. Or have you?
Oh, yeah.
You've probably seen clips of like when the CEO or whatever of TikTok was on stand, like a couple years back, and there was the most
Yeah.
stupid questions that like the senators that asked him. It was so hilarious. If
And
you
like
have
he
not
kept
seen like
answering
funny
them
clips,
and didn't like his
Yeah.
answers. Yeah.
they're like,
Yeah.
"Were you ever part of the Chinese Communist Party?" And he's like, "Senator, I'm Singaporean. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not even Chinese. Like, what?"
Yeah. Yeah.
funny.
I don't know.
Anyway, check it out if you haven't.
Those are the
TikTok
people we put in
trial,
charge.
Johnny
Like,
Depp
how do we
yeah.
change that? Anyway, this is where things got complicated. Because the law, the Lindbergh law,
Lindbergh.
was actually repealed before
Okay.
he went to trial.
Oh shit.
But it didn't apply retroactively. So he was still prosecuted under the old version of the law,
Okay.
which still allowed for the death penalty.
Yeah.
So that's what sparked major controversy because he was sentenced to death even though he didn't kill anyone, and it led to national debates about the fairness of the death penalty and whether it should apply in his case where the victim survived. So his legal team argued that his actions didn't really meet the original intent of the law, but that didn't really work.
Of course, it's not gonna really stick.
But now on death row, he's facing execution, and something interesting happens. He finds
Okay.
a new voice.
Okay. What
He
is this voice?
He becomes a writer.
Oh my god, bro. He's one of these guys.
He's one of
these
these
criminals?
guys.
Oh god.
He wrote several books, and he was incredibly
Profitable. Prophetic?
prolific. There we go.
Prolific.
There we go. And his most famous one, I think it was called Cell 22455 Death Row, which was like the cell that he was in.
Okay.
And that one became an international bestseller
Wow. People. People
because
really
it was
wanted
such
to
a
buy
controversial case. So he was fighting for his life. Also, I looked up the book and it has like 2 stars. So I don't know how bestseller it was.
this. Whoever read this, like, our ultimate fanboys. What?
Honestly. But he was also fighting for his life. He was filing appeal after appeal. He managed to postpone his execution multiple times.
Wow.
Care to guess how many times his execution was postponed?
5.
You're not far off. 8 times.
That's a lot. How did he do that?
Well, some say that he was manipulating the system to prolong his life by just appeal after appeal. And that's why he became like an international figure. He even impacted international diplomacy. Governor Pat Brown, who was personally opposed to the death penalty, found himself under immense pressure from both sides. So his personal beliefs were clashing with the political reality. And in 1960, Governor Pat Brown delayed one execution for Caryl Chessman. So in addition to this, celebrities, politicians, and even people from other countries begged the governor to stop the execution.
Wow. And he did. He listened.
Yeah, at least one time.
At least one time. Okay, why didn't the public want to carry out the death penalty? Was it because of the whole debate on?
It was the whole debate of, is it really kidnapping? Like, does he deserve
Was
to
it
be
really
put to death
necessary
because, like
Yeah.
he didn't really kill anyone? It wasn't necessarily whether he was innocent or not. It was more of whether he should live or die.
Yeah.
I don't think there was really arguments
Okay.
of whether, you know, like,
Like whether he was guilty or not.
yeah.
Or
But there was arguments of like, hey, he really
how
shouldn't.
should he be punished for it?
Yeah, of course. It's the
Gotcha.
death penalty. People are going to argue about that.
Yeah, especially in California.
Yeah, yeah. And then there was also big names that got involved, like
who?
Eleanor Roosevelt
Okay.
and Aldous Huxley, who was a writer at the time, and they both said that this was injustice.
Okay.
So finally, on May 2nd, 1960, his time ran out. Chessman was led to the gas chamber at San Quentin State Prison. And in a dramatic twist, a judge tried to issue a last-minute stay of execution. But this contributes to the whole outrage that people felt. Due to a miscommunication, a secretary dialed the wrong number. The message didn't reach the prison in time, and Chessman's execution proceeded as scheduled.
Oh, I'm sure there was a huge fallout
Oh,
because of that.
yep. Yep. So he was supposed, you know, they were supposed to postpone that execution one more time. But because the
And it
prison didn't
didn't.
get the message in time, they
Yeah.
just went through with it.
So what happened? Was there like public outrage? Was there, anything like public put out by that judge?
Oh, yeah. So there was a lot
Consequences?
that happened because I did not think that researching this case, there'd be so much happening once this person was prosecuted. But there's a ton because, of course, of this law and like,
Yeah.
you know, executing him when he wasn't supposed to be executed. So this man already, Chessman was dead at this point. And they honored his wishes. They cremated him and he requested that his ashes be put at with his parents at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park. But the cemetery refused on quote unquote moral grounds.
Oh, wow.
So consequently, his ashes were scattered off the coast of the Santa Cruz Island. So you think that, you know, once someone is executed, that's where the story ends. Justice is served, the case is closed. But for Caryl Chessman, his death in May 2nd was just the beginning of a bigger story.
Yeah, I mean, it changed everything, right? People were like, should death penalty be a thing? And, you know, what are the consequences of that?
And this caused outrage internationally.
I bet.
Because when people got word that he was executed, when they told, you know, they said don't do it. In Stockholm, Sweden, people stormed the U.S. embassy.
Wow, what?
In Montevideo, Uruguay, protesters raged on the streets. And in Lisbon, Portugal, the outrage turned violent.
That's crazy.
So the death of this one man was causing international, you know, outrage. Mm-hmm. And
I mean, I get that. I completely understand.
Yeah.
But I think it's really crazy how far it reached. The U.S. Embassy in, what, Switzerland?
yeah,
That's,
Switzerland, Uruguay, Portugal.
yeah.
Those are just some of the countries that, of course, were outraged. And it kind of comes to show how people felt about the death penalty and about the legal system in the U.S. at the time.
Yeah.
So the execution of Caryl Chessman wasn't just an American event, like I mentioned. It was an
It
international
was
one.
international. Yeah.
The question was a simple question. Did America just execute an innocent man?
What? No. He committed
Yeah.
crime.
Yeah. But once again, because he was interrogated for 72 hours, beaten and tortured,
Oh, they were like, oh, is this actually true?
is this
His
actually true?
confession
Is the evidence, you know, real evidence, or was it
actually there? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
I see. I get it.
Now, back at home, like here in the US and California, and just around the country, the protests were just as fierce as in other countries. The night before Chessman's execution, actors Marlon Brando and Shirley MacLaine didn't just talk about their opposition, they camped out in front of the governor's mansion, hoping
wow.
to convince Governor Pat Brown to stop it. And outside of St. Quentin's prison, hundreds of people gathered, candles in hands, chanting for mercy. But of course, the gas chamber doors sealed shut, and in 1972, just 12 years after his execution, the Supreme Court ruled on Furman versus Georgia, effectively putting a stop to capital punishment in the U.S. for several years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that, folks, is the story of Caryl Chessman, convicted criminal, death row author, and international sensation. But was he really the infamous Red Light Bandit? That depends on who you ask.
Red Light Bandit.
Some believe that he was guilty beyond a doubt. Others pointed to the shaky evidence and the rushed trial. But in the end, the biggest debate wasn't just about guilt or innocent. It was whether or not he deserved to die for his crimes.
And it's something we're still debating as a country, right?
Yep. Because unlike most people sentenced to death, Chessman didn't kill anyone. Yet he spent 12 years fighting for his life, appeal after appeal. You know, turning his time behind bars into a worldwide conversation about justice, rehabilitation, and of course the death penalty.
See, the worst part about that, though, is like, yes, it's good that all these conversations arose from it. But these conversations happened because this guy sexually assaulted people under threat of killing them.
Yep.
So, you know, it's not a good thing. And there was all these conversations. I'm sure it was not his intent when he decided to become an author to like start this movement. But of course, he was going to take credit for it. And I think that's
and I'm
kind
sure
of
that
scummy.
once he got word that people were like trying to stand up for him, it just fueled him more.
100%.
Yeah. So once again, this case left behind a lot of questions. Was he guilty? Did he get a free trial? And most importantly, should the government have the power to decide who lives and who dies? No matter where you stand on the Chessman case, one thing is for sure, it changed the way people talked about crime and punishment forever. And that, folks, is the Red Light Bandit. Convicted, controversial, and possibly still filing appeals from the afterlife. But hey, if I were a ghost, I know exactly who I'd haunt first. So what do you think, Kai? Want to share a spooky seance with me?
That was a good like segue into a paranormal story. That was pretty
I
good.
had to.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing. That's cool. I mean, of course, once again, like I said, I hate that the reason why it happened was because of crime, but also super important conversations that needed to be had and still need to be had to this day. So, yeah.
I tried finding just information about the crimes, and it was really hard because everything was focused about his trial and how the world reacted after his trial. So it was really hard to find information of when the crimes were committed and who was affected.
And that really sucks. Because now it's like, well, people have moved away from the crimes that he committed, but towards his positive, quote unquote, positive effects afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, that's so crazy. Isn't that minimizing what he did? And
A
like,
lot of what I heard was about his trial, about whether he should live or die, about how, you know, the system was skewed. But once again, I was like, where he committed so many things in the past, even when he was a child.
Yeah, like he had history here. Like, this was not really a one-time thing. This was in the making since he was growing up.
And he, of course, would have kept going if no one stopped him.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so Kai, take us away from The U.S.
All right. That I shall do. So picture this. A towering stone fortress standing defiantly against the Irish landscape.
Oh.
It's weathered walls and these weathered walls whisper secrets of bloodshed and betrayal. So inside of these walls, the air is thick. Stories of murder, lost souls, and a darkness that refuses to be forgotten. There is the weight of history living in here. And as you step through the halls, you feel it. An
Okay.
oppressive energy. The sense that unseen eyes are watching. And you hear the soft echo of footsteps behind you. Except you're completely alone.
No.
So let me ask you this. If you were standing in that darkness, hearing those footsteps, feeling that chilling, cold rush of air on your back, would you turn around or would you run?
I have said this before, and I will say it again. If I was in a horror movie, I would die.
Welcome to Leap Castle.
Yep. I would turn around and just deal with whatever happens.
And deal with the consequences.
And deal with the consequences of my actions. Exactly.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I will walk
Listeners,
into a
what would you do?
basement.
What would
Yep.
you do, listeners? Let us know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Call me stupid. Tell me, Jay, you're stupid. You're gonna die because I
Jay,
know.
you're an idiot. Jay, you're the type that would represent yourself in court.
I would not represent myself in court. Thank you very much. There is a difference between stupid things in paranormal movies and legal proceedings. I will 100% be one of the people that get killed in a horror movie. I would 100% be the one that I want a lawyer. I don't know what I'm doing.
Got it. Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
you're a smart man.
When it comes to real life,
Yeah. So
paranormal, all logic flies out the window.
So a couple weeks ago, for my last paranormal case that I covered, I talked about Poveglia Island. So if you
Yes.
haven't listened to that episode, definitely go check it out.
Yeah.
Listeners, so I mentioned Poveglia Island and how Poveglia Island is the most haunted location in Italy. It's the most haunted island in the world.
Okay, is this the most haunted location somewhere else?
Yeah.
No, that's great. I don't. Why were you so like? Yeah.
Because isn't every haunted place the most haunted place? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
just think
I
it's so
mean, I
funny.
could say I live in the most haunted house in my zip code. You know,
It's true.
and
Anyway, yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So I think anyone can claim to have the most haunted building.
Yeah. Well, Ireland claims this to be their most haunted building, and
is
one
it
of the most
called?
haunted places on Earth, Leap Island or Lep Island.
Oh, is it an island as well?
Sorry, not island, castle.
Okay, okay.
Leap Castle
Leap
or
Castle.
Lep Castle. LEAP,
Okay.
like jump.
Got it. Yeah.
So
Are there frogs in the area?
Probably.
I don't
Are there
know.
frogs in Ireland? I don't know. Anyway.
If you're listening from Ireland, tell us. Do y'all have frogs? Probably.
Oh my god. All right. So
We're
yeah, does Ireland
uneducated.
have frogs? Please let us know.
We're so uneducated. I'm sure they do.
Oh yeah, this shit is terrible. Okay, so Leap Island is a castle located in Coolderry, County Offaly, Ireland. So it's sort of like in the center-ish of Ireland, around there.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's a castle, and it's deemed to be one of the most haunted in the world. But like with any paranormal location, there's some history behind it that really draws that in.
Yeah, you can't just say there's this happening and don't tell us why.
Yeah, here's this castle. There are some ghosts here. Kind of spooky. Thanks for listening.
Come back next week for more.
Yeah. So, so there are lots of different accounts. It said that it was built sometime between the 12th and 15th century, which is a really big time span.
Okay.
Now, it starts from the very creation of this castle itself. Some stories say...
Okay.
Some stories say that it was built on the site of ancient druids. So a druidic site. So
Sacred land.
Sacred lands, right?
Yeah.
With some history that were behind them.
That's
but,
cool.
It is kind of cool when you think about it, actually. Yeah. So it was built by the O'Bannon clan. So it was a clan, a family down back during that time, roughly around like the 1200s or so.
Wow, we're going back in time.
Yes. So 1250 is the year that is used very commonly, but once again, that's not entirely like spot specific. So the O'Bannon clan. The O'Bannon clan was sort of like the secondary clan, the second in chief to the O'Carrolls family, the O'Carroll clan.
Okay.
Back then, so the O'Carrolls were like the top of the top. So it was built by the O'Bannon clan under direction of the O'Carroll clan. So the castle was supposed to serve as like a strategic stronghold for the military. It controlled some of the key trade and battle routes that were in Ireland. But now a lot of these families, a lot of these clans were very competitive when it came to leadership. Lots of times there was literal battles, wars, right? And sometimes it was within the families against each other.
Yeah.
So the O'Bannons, they created this castle and, well, they needed to figure out who was going to own it. So there were two brothers, the two oldest brothers of the O'Bannon clan.
So was it like a family fight?
Sort of, yeah. But specifically between these two brothers to see who would take ownership. They agreed to a little contest. They would go.
Sorry, I'm thinking 1200s, family arguments. We have a contest. I'm sure someone ends up dead. Maybe, I don't know.
No, you're definitely right on that.
Okay. Because I don't know. I'm just thinking of like Brave. Like shoot an arrow.
Much,
like
much more death than that.
Okay,
no, it wasn't.
So not family friendly.
No, definitely not. So, the brothers, they were to climb on top of a big rock cliff, and they were to jump. And whichever brother would survive this jump was to be the leader of the castle. Jump to nowhere.
So I'm thinking whoever survives the fall is the winner.
Is the winner. Yeah.
It's such a weird competition.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, it is.
Clearly they didn't get along. So tell me more.
So the original name for the castle was Liam Benin, or however you would say that in an Irish accent.
Sure. You just gotta throw the accent in there. You have it.
No, I don't. No, I don't. Roughly translates to leap of the O'Bannons. Right?
Okay.
Because they literally took a leap to figure out who would own it.
Okay.
Leap Castle.
Do you know which brother made it?
No, there's really not much information on the actual brothers themselves.
Oh,
just really.
After you're gonna tell me like, no, they both died.
That would be so funny.
I'm like, okay, who gets it now?
That is so funny.
Just saying. And if they both survive, do they have to do it again?
Yeah, they did.
That's a crazy, like, ass challenge, like, competition.
Anyway, one of them survived, took ownership of the castle,
Okay.
and it stayed that way for a while, I would
Okay.
say. But the O'Carroll clan that I mentioned earlier, who were the more powerful clan that
Okay.
was around, well, they decided that they really liked the castle and they wanted it for themselves.
Of course.
So they just
Because-
took it. They took it from the O'Bannons because, of course, who was going to stop them?
The O'Bannons? I don't know.
The O'Bannons, yeah, I don't know. So the O'Carrolls were in ownership of this castle until about 1649 when it then changed ownership once again. But
Okay.
during the time of the O'Carrolls, there was a lot of violence.
Oh, the O'Carrolls were the first, like the number one family, right?
Yes, O'Carrolls
Of
were number
course.
one. O'Bannons were like number two, essentially.
Of course, they're gonna get away with everything.
Yeah. So the O'Carrolls, they, seized control of it through brutality. The O'Bannons didn't want to give it up.
Yeah, no.
had
One
to.
brother died for this castle. You're not taking it from us.
Literally.
Who? We don't know. Just-
So during the O'Carrolls' rule, though, afterwards, there was attacks. Of course, it was a trade outpost. There were attacks from Gerald Fitzgerald, the Earl of
that.
Kildare. In 1513, he tried to seize the castle. There was lots of bloodshed in this feud. He tried again 3 years later, and just the same as before, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of violence and death.
Was this castle like very well like fortified? Was there like a moat and like walls and things?
It doesn't look like there's a moat from what I saw, but like I'll send you some pictures later, and it's a castle. Like this is
Okay.
a stronghold castle.
So
is what
it
it looked
was
like.
made to be a stronghold.
It was, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Though it was damaged in some of these battles that did.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So time would go by, and it was 1532 when perhaps the most gruesome murder in the castle was committed. So
Not the first one, but the more gruesome one.
the most gruesome one. Yeah.
Okay.
So in the same vein as the O'Bannon brothers fighting for ownership and for power, the O'Carroll brothers were fighting as well.
For what?
There was a power struggle, who was going to be in charge of this castle. Like I mentioned, there was a lot of fighting even in between families. So the story goes that one day, one of the O'Carroll brothers, he was a priest, he was holding mass, church,
Okay.
for the people. When his name was Thaddeus O'Carroll, he was the
Thaddeus.
priest. He was giving mass one day when his younger brother, Tej, supposedly stomped through the doors of the chapel and stabbed his brother right in the back.
Talk about backstabbing.
Yeah.
Wow.
In front of everyone, in front of the entire family, at the altar in the chapel.
Yeah. What do you do in that situation?
Scream? I don't know. Like,
Yeah. Depends who you are. If you're a fan, like I think I would. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So
Also, like in a place of worship, really, like you could have.
I mean, he was
wait
at his
until-
most vulnerable, right?
I think people are most vulnerable when they're sleeping.
That's true. Actually,
I mean, how many? Wasn't that whole like how many like Greek tragedies or like talk about a scene where like they want to kill someone while they're sleeping?
I have no clue. I don't know.
No, I think I know of one, and that's it. But anyway, carry on.
So, yeah, Thaddeus, the oldest brother, the priest, he bled out on that altar in the chapel, and now it's referred to as the Bloody Chapel. Oh, what a great name.
You know what? I don't hate it, but I don't love it.
So, where am I going from here? After this, the O'Carrolls were still in ownership, and I mentioned they had it for a while, till about 1649, until the castle passed ownership onto the Darby family.
Okay, where did they come from?
So the Darby family married into the O'Carroll family somehow.
Okay.
Once again, there's really not much like detailed descriptions about how this happened.
Because you
I was
talked about the
confused
first,
myself.
like the top two people, and then now you're bringing in another family.
Yeah. So
But
I think just
Getting
one of the,
like the marriage makes
marriage
sense.
brought them all together. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
So the Darby family got ownership of this. There was a lot of remodeling from when the Darbys took ownership in 1642 until the castle did kind of burn in 1922, and then there's more that happened.
Kind of
after
burned?
that. Yeah, there was a burning. It didn't like burn down completely.
So that's why there was kind of a burn.
There was kind of a burning. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Darbys, they took care of this family. And the Darbys, they were kind of fascinated with the history of this castle. After, things had moved on, the Darbys owned this castle for a very long time. So they really looked into a lot of the history of it. And the Darbys reported a lot of really paranormal occurrences. And I guess
that's
this is
when
where it kind of starts.
They start. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, lots of it, there are things. So there's lots of paranormal occurrences that have, been talked about over the years, partially because of all the death that really happened.
Yeah. I mean,
there.
family members killing each other, people jumping off cliffs. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
So in the late 19th century, though, Mildred Darby, one of the family members of that Darby family, apparently she was just fascinated by the occult. So she started conducting seances and
Wait, what year was
rituals
this?
in the South? 19th century, not really an exact year.
Okay, no, fair.
but,
No, that's more
around that
like
time.
we really jumped too much closer.
Yeah. No, so the Darby family was in ownership for a very long time. So from
Ma'am,
the 1600s
where was my invite?
till...
I'm just saying, if you invite me to a seance, there's a good chance I'll say yes.
Honestly, I would say no. We've talked about this before, probably.
See, it
I
doesn't mean
don't wanna
I'll
be part of a
partake.
seance.
I will be standing by the snack table watching everyone else partake.
I don't get it. I will never do a seance. I will never use like a Ouija board or anything like that. Not for me.
You know, there's a saying in a very famous song, never say never.
Get Justin Bieber out of here. Like, I don't. I do not need. Yeah, I do not need to hear about Justin Bieber in my podcast. I'm kidding. I don't actually.
You're the one that I just said never say never. You're the one talking about him.
So, okay, getting back into it.
Yes, the seance.
Yeah, going from around that time, the Darbys, to currently, is where we really get into a lot of the paranormal that happened. And a lot of it, of course, people think is because of all the death that happened. Just like every other paranormal place, it's always caused by death.
Yeah, it's mostly death or like trauma or occult stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just random,
Yeah.
like Jeff.
So, oh, I love Jeff. We can't forget about him.
No, there was like no reason for that to happen, and it just started. But anyway, yeah. So this was because of death, lots of death.
Yeah. So, lots of death, and a lot of paranormal occurrences that happen because of it. Stenches of decay, shadowy figures with glowing red eyes.
Oh.
And, supposedly other supernatural forces, which I'll get into.
Sounds cool.
Right now.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So, first, I'd like to start with someone known as the Red Lady.
Real quick,
Yeah.
do we know what happened during the seance? Okay, cool. Moving on. Red Lady.
The Red Lady. So, the Red Lady is known as one of the ghosts of the castle. Her name's unknown, but she is said to, of course, been just one of the victims of the O'Carrolls. So she's believed to have been captured, imprisoned, raped by the O'Carroll clan over a while. So the story goes is that after a while, she became pregnant. Her baby was taken from her and then murdered by the clan. And so, of course, the Red Lady then did commit suicide. And so people have sort of seen her as this tall lady in a red dress who approaches with a raised dagger in her hand, walking through the halls of the castle.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty crazy description. I've never heard like a description of a ghost like that before.
I Sorry,
Yes?
I'm thinking how you start this story. I'm dead if I turn around.
You are. Yeah, you are.
Because normally, like, you're right, we don't hear this descriptions of ghosts of like menacing with like a dagger or something. So yeah,
It's
I'm
like
dead.
you're just like, oh, a shadow figure or like a figure coming at you, but no, like a lady in a dress with a knife.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's different.
I need to do my research before I go to places.
You 100% should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
No.
if there's going to be red ladies.
Yeah. Another few ghosts that I want to point out are the two young girls that are seen on the property.
Like like next to each other.
Yeah. Emily and Charlotte are their names. What they're believed
they
to
sound
be.
like they're young.
Yeah. So story goes is that Emily did pass away when she was 11. She fell from some high parts of the castle. And Charlotte, there's not too much else really known about her. Yeah, do you have something?
Okay. No, you said she fell from a high part of the castle, and I'm like, oh no, she was doing the challenge. Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever the brothers did, she was
Yeah,
doing
the
the same
leap challenge. She was yeah. So Emily and Charlotte, some people believe they were living there around the 17th century.
Okay. Is it because of their clothing that people can tell?
Probably. Or just some record of the Darbys.
Okay.
So sometimes people have reported seeing the figure of a little girl falling from the castle. And then they see another girl dragging her along. Like
Like
this
the corpse?
going. Yes.
No. I would scream. I would probably run towards the body trying to help them out. Because if I saw like a little girl fall down and then another girl drag her,
Yeah, no, 100%.
I would run
like
to them.
You'd be concerned.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Charlotte
Wow.
also apparently has a deformed leg that sort of just is kind of drag along her as she moves as well. So Emily and Charlotte, two girls that are seen.
Poor
But otherwise,
Emily. Poor Charlotte.
not really that creepy, I guess. Especially not compared to the Red Lady, who's right.
No, but I
gonna
still
stab
think
you.
it's concerning to see that. especially if you don't know about them being ghosts.
Definitely. Now there's a another lady who is called the governess.
Ooh. What color is her dress?
Um, I don't know if she wears a dress.
Oh, oh, is she not wearing?
I don't know.
What is she wearing, Kai?
We don't talk about that. Sometimes she's been seen accompanying Emily and Charlotte. There's two girls running around.
Okay.
People say that if they have encounters with her, sometimes, she'll brush past them or get very close. And so there's some recounts, a little bit more that I'll go into just a bit later, from the modern or the current owner of the castle. Now, two of the main, I guess, spirits that are known here in the castle. One of them is called It. It's just known as It.
Get out. I'm walking away. If this It is a clown with a balloon.
Oh, no.
No. But either way, I don't like how they don't give it a name.
Mm-mm. So you know that smell of stench and rot that I mentioned earlier? Well, typically that is accompanied by It. And It is described as a small creature, sort of like the size of a sheep.
Creature?
It has a decaying face. Its corpse is rotting. And it's seen, in the shadows appearing. It's one of the spirits that's believed to reside in the castle.
I would love to visit. I just don't want to see the Red Lady or It.
Well, you probably also don't want to encounter the elemental.
Most definitely.
The elemental is such a scary name for a ghost.
Yeah, it sounds
For
like
a
it's made of
spirit?
fire.
Or something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So what is this elemental? Who
Well,
is this elemental?
remember how I mentioned that people believe it could have been built on Druidic land?
Oh, so this
Mm-hmm.
is where that comes in.
Yes. People believe that the elemental could be the most ancient entity that lives in the castle. It belonged to the Druids. It was created to, protect the land. But now there's this castle that's there. Apparently the elemental doesn't show itself unless it is challenged.
Okay. Not Zach Bagans, so I won't be doing that.
Yeah. You mentioned, or when I talked about Mildred Darby doing those seances.
Yeah.
Now, there wasn't really any details of her seances, but you did ask a bit more about stuff. Well, apparently the elemental is really known because of Mildred's recounts. Right? I mentioned the elemental doesn't show itself unless it's challenged. So Mildred was practicing this dark magic, these seances, and that's when the elemental would show up. Apparently.
Girl, Mildred, go to church. Go to the chapel.
So there's some writing from Mildred. There's a little story happened in 1909. She said she was standing in the gallery of the castle when she felt somebody put a hand on her shoulder. She looked and she saw something with black cavities for eyes, the smell of a decomposing corpse, and it had a gaunt, inhuman face.
I'm sure she freaked out.
She probably did. I mean, how would you not?
It's I think in that situation it's very much of the freeze or flee or flight.
Yeah, like fright or flight or
But I
flight
think
or freeze or yeah.
Yeah, but I would probably freeze.
Yeah. I don't know. Out of all of the spirits that I've heard of, the elemental probably is one of the creepiest.
It's definitely something from a nightmare.
Yeah, no, because it seemed like it's described as more of an entity than just like a regular ghost. You know, it's something that's like evil and dark and ancient.
Something that was on the land before the land was used. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So that's the main sort of ghost. The elemental is what people are most concerned about. There are some other small things, like an unknown screaming woman who is sometimes heard, believed to be another, murder victim of the O'Carroll clan.
Okay. Wow. Ma'am? Sorry. I'm just thinking of the ma'am having this, like the lady having her seances. Don't!
Yeah, I guess so. So, the priest's house is another area as well that's said to have lots of shadows that wander around, objects moving, and is one of the rooms that's now affected because of that fire that happened in 1922. It was from the Civil War.
The fire?
So the fire, yeah.
Okay.
1922, the Civil War happened. The Irish Civil War, that is.
Yeah.
They weren't in the U.S.
No. Civil War is usually in the country, not international.
But there was that fire that did destroy a lot of this castle, but it didn't fully burn down. It's still standing. A lot of people think that fire, though, could have sort of angered the spirits, right? Especially the elemental, because it's so protective of this land. And since then, it's when really a lot of these experiences are described.
Okay. So, like, did everything start after the fire?
No, because there are recounts from Mildred,
Okay.
back in 1909 and in the 18th, 19th century of these paranormal experiences, and
Okay.
her seeing the elemental with its hand on her
And was that
shoulder
the
and whatnot.
only fire that happened at the castle?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are those hauntings, but I think something that I also want to point out that is not a haunting, but is really creepy, was
Okay.
when workers, like in later years, were renovating this house. In one area, they found an oblette, I believe it's called.
An oblette?
An oblette.
What's an
which
oblette?
which is like an underground chamber or basement, and the only opening is on the roof.
I know. Oh, yes. I know what you're talking about. Weirdly
Yeah.
enough, I know what you're talking about. Wow.
So like a dungeon. So it was found, and so they saw that it was, an oblette, and they very quickly realized that that's where, the bodies and the prisoners and whatnot would be thrown down. And so when the workmen eventually were able to excavate a bit of that, they found hundreds of human bones at the bottom of this oblette.
Wow.
Apparently there were 3 cartloads of bones. To,
Okay,
remove them
well,
on
this
those whole 3
castle was
cartloads.
utilized for like hundreds of years. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But this was like sealed?
Creepy as hell.
Like they found
Yeah,
it
it
during
was
like
sealed. Yeah.
Wow.
Like, so workmen doing like some renovations in the later years of it. I don't know.
I wonder what family sealed it. That's what I'm curious about.
I mean, it's got it. Oh yeah, because like, did the O'Carrolls seal it, and then the Darbys left it sealed for years, or like did the Darbys use it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because at that point means that there was like family members living there that didn't know this was there.
Yeah,
And I guess that could also explain some of like the weird smells.
the smells, but the smells in a more like logical sense, but also, the spirits housed
Yeah,
there
I
because
mean,
their bones were there.
How many carts did you say? 3, 4?
3 cartloads full.
Yeah, that's a lot. Especially because when they found them, I assume it was just bones.
Yeah, it was a lot of bones.
Do you know what
So-
happened to those like bones, those corpses?
They're probably disposed of, or they're
Okay.
in some sort of archive or something. I don't
Okay.
know. So the house was the castle was taken over in the 1990s, 1991, I believe, by Sean Ryan. And so Sean is still the owner of
Okay.
the castle to this day. He's had lots of reported activity that he's talked about. Doors slamming, ghostly music playing, cold spots. Apparently, he has talked about like an old man who's there who will move things around.
Okay.
But what he sort of says is that he doesn't really think this castle is haunted because he thinks that he's sharing it with the spirits because it really is their home, right? And he's just sort
Oh,
of
okay.
taking
This
care of it.
castle's not haunted. I'm the intruder here.
Exactly. That's sort of what he believes, and he's like, I'm trying to live harmoniously with these spirits here in this castle.
I guess I kind of see that, but I think it goes to like, what's the definition of haunted?
Yeah. That's like a philosophical question
Is it?
that I can't answer.
I didn't mean to get that deep. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Anyway, at its core, though, it is a beautiful castle in Ireland.
I'm sure.
It is open, like, as a tourist attraction for tours. So it's a really cool place to go. Part of it is destroyed because of, the Irish Civil War in 1922.
Yep.
But it's still really good. The owner, Sean, he did rebuild some areas of it based off of pictures that they had.
Okay.
And so I'll be sending a bunch of pictures and we'll post that
Yeah.
on, Instagram and whatever as well. But yeah, that
Wow.
is the Leap Castle in Ireland and all of its spirits that are contained within.
All of the known spirits.
All of the known spirits, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
with so many deaths, I'm sure that there's a couple lingering around.
I
There's a
really
couple-
don't want to uncover or find any of them.
Any of the not mentioned ones? Especially,
Anyone at all. Any of them at all.
yeah, especially if they fall under the category of like It or the Elemental. Or like the Red Lady.
Please.
Wow.
I don't know. Something about the elemental is just like, I don't know.
No, because like it lets you know that like this thing was never human. It's just like a force of nature. So,
Exactly.
wow. I think that's really cool though.
Yeah.
So, do you know how tours work? Is it like guided, self-guided? Do they offer like paranormal investigations, anything like that?
Let's see. Leap Castle. I don't know. I think you just have to call, and they probably have like tours that go.
Okay.
Because from what I don't
You're-
think they have a website.
You're assuming that I'm going to be able to understand their accent.
Hey, it's not that bad.
Maybe I should communicate via email. That might be easier.
That might be easier for sure. Okay. Yeah, you need to organize it directly with Sean Ryan, the owner.
Okay.
So
Makes
call
sense.
or email.
So does he live there?
I don't think they live there, but I bet he spends a lot of time there.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay.
From some like stories or like first person accounts of what I've said, like of people who have booked tours there, it's not like just oh, well, I'll show you around. Here's this. Like Sean, the owner, actually takes time to just sit down with you and talk and like have a deep dive into like the history
Wow.
and what it's all about. And so I think that's really cool.
Sean, reach out to us. Or we'll reach out to you.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you.
Maybe we'll take a trip to Ireland. Who knows?
Yeah. You can show us where the girls are seen. And that's it. We don't want to see the other ones.
You can drop us in the oublet.
No.
No.
You can drop
Oh, no.
Kai in the oublet.
As long as nothing follows me in there, maybe I'd consider going in.
Are people allowed to go into the oublet?
Probably not.
Okay. Okay, yeah. I don't think would be an exception. Be cool if we were, but No. I'm okay not being in the oobleck.
I don't want to come across it. I don't want to come across the red lady. I don't want to come across the elemental.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something about that's just so ominous to me.
Wow. Now, do you know, because you mentioned the Civil War. One thing that
Yeah.
was stuck in my head was like, was it used like as a fort during the Civil War or something? Like, why was it damaged during the Civil War? Or like it was just damaged and we don't know why.
I don't know. Let's see. There's nothing like direct about it, I guess. It says the castle was just like mysteriously set on fire.
Could have been by the elemental
It could have been, yeah.
or by a
Yeah,
human.
nobody knows who actually like burned it or why.
Or why. Just that it was during the Civil War.
But it happened July
Okay.
30th and 31st,
Wow.
like the nights of that. Yeah, who knows?
Why, thank you. Ireland, we're coming for you.
That'd
maybe.
be fun. I would love to go to Ireland.
Yeah.
Like eventually, sometime in my lifetime. So, yeah.
But thank you.
Thanks for being here, folks.
So that's the Leap Castle.
Yes.
Wow.
I don't want to jump off of
was
that one.
Very. I'm thinking how there's so much yet so little information with this castle because
Yeah.
it goes back so far.
Yeah.
And then like we get to current day and now we have more information in the current times, but like
Still not a lot.
still not a lot. And yeah.
What I think is really interesting, though, is how there's so many named spirits, you know? Like, most of the time, paranormal or haunted locations, they don't really have named spirits. It's just like, oh, there's, like, a lady who screams or a lady who can be seen crying. But, like, no, we've got the Red Lady, we've got Emily and Charlotte, we've got the
Yeah.
Elemental. So, I don't
When
know,
you
it's
said
cool.
the Red Lady, I felt like running, but I didn't know where. Like, forget what I said. I did feel like running to grab my notebook because I used to have a notebook that I started writing back in like I think like high school or something. Because I would check out like books from the public library, like
Yeah.
about paranormal stuff, and like I would write things down, like different types of haunting, different types of ghost. And when you said the Red Lady, I was like, I wrote about the Red Lady. I don't
You
know.
need to find that. That'd be
I need to
cool.
find that notebook. It's very old. I'm sure, like I wrote like the year and the day and everything.
Yeah.
I wrote about like red ladies, brown ladies, white ladies, like green ladies, because they all show up in different dresses and there's like symbolism behind all of them apparently.
Okay. So that's why you asked what dress the governess
The
was
governess
wearing.
was wearing. Yeah.
Okay. I see.
Because I think the brown ladies, I'll have to find that book and we can talk about this next time. I'll like pull up the notebook, show how old it is, how it hasn't aged well. But the brown ladies very much connected to the earth, things like that. And I think the green lady, it's also very connected to the earth, something like that. I don't know. I have to find it again. Wrote about werewolves. We're not covering werewolves this episode, but fun fact. If you ever go use a urinal and they didn't flush or like a toilet and it's purple, they're a werewolf.
Oh, that's good to know.
I don't
Thanks,
know.
Jay.
No, you're welcome.
And that's where we call it a night.
And that's it, all for you guys. Stay hydrated. Don't forget to breathe. You are now manually breathing.
Don't drink a Monster at 8 p.m.
I mean, are you drinking a Monster or are you finishing a Monster?
No, I'm drinking. It's probably I barely even like.
Fair. Okay.
I don't know. I have
And
homework to do.
I like how you're not. Are you telling them to not drink it and you're still drinking it?
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
Fair.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Unless you're like listening and not watching, he's definitely not drinking a Monster.
No, nope.
But But yeah, that is all. Thank you,
All
everyone.
right. Have a good night, day, afternoon, evening, morning,
Road trip.
fortnight,
Yeah.
tomorrow,
Seance.
yesteryear. Yeah, don't participate in black magic. Don't build a house on druidic land. And if you smell the stench of a rotting corpse, make sure to pray to whatever god you believe in and run as far away as you can.
Yeah, don't turn around when you hear someone walking behind you.
No. And with that, we leave you.
Yes.
Good night. Bye.
Smurf.
Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to Chambers of the Occult. For photos, sources, and anything else mentioned during the episode, check out our website at chambersoftheoccult.com. You'll find everything you need there if you do find yourself wanting more. You can also follow us on all of our socials at Chambers of the Occult and on Twitter at COTO Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, personal anecdotes, or concerns, let us know. Fill out our contact form on our website, email us at chambersoftheoccult@gmail.com, or leave us a message on our socials. We would love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed what you heard, we would greatly appreciate it if you could drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. It is absolutely the best way to show your support, and it would mean the world. Until next time.